What is your best or worst don't meet your heroes story? I worked as a cashier in a State Line, Nevada casino in the early 80s. Part of our training included a warning that Bruce Dern often gambled in the early morning and he did not like to be recognized. I've been a huge Bruce Dern fan since Silent Running, and it was enough for me to spot him from across the room. One day, I'm training a new hire and Mr. Dern came to our window. I had forgotten to warn my trainee about him. After the trainee cashed out his chips, he says, "Has anyone ever told you that you look just like Bruce Dern?" Mr. Dern grins and says, "I get that a lot," and walks away. Made my day. I met Wil Wheaton at a big sci-fi con a few years ago. It was like halfway through the third day and had been signing stuff for hours. I got to the front of the line and he jumped out of his chair in excitement and yelled, "Are those Battleth earrings?" So cool. He then proceeded to sign my dorky old TNG comic with Wesley Crusher on the cover, of course, and we put an earring on the cover, so he could take a photo of Wes with it. We talked about open source software and EFF. Whole interaction took 3-4 minutes, but he was just totally there for it, despite having 100 other people he'd have to interact with. He later included the photo in his blog. I met Tim Curry a few years ago, and it was a different kind of bad. He was so frail it broke my heart. At a corporate training session, we had all the best mechanical engineers in one place, and I know one dude from Reputation, one of those guys that could take a downed helicopter and get it flying again with very little time and spare parts. His record was amazing. He raked in huge sums over this Reputation. I found out he'd sign off riskier projects under other people's names, so if it turned out to not be doable, his reputation would remain intact, and most of those miracle patchworks that I mentioned would be at the cost of tearing down other functional equipment. So he'd take a vehicle with torn to shit, boast about how he'd put it back together, then proceed to take parts from another of the same kind, but with minor damages, and still working, break it down, and use that to repair his pet project, effectively breaking 3-4 vehicles to repair one and make himself look good. Huge asshole. Went to see Penn Teller in Vegas, and one of their magic tricks during the show involved the audience. The trick worked for everyone in my family, but not for me. Now they are well known for meeting people after their show, so we stayed, got autographs and photos with them. Even Teller was talking, they couldn't have been nicer. Penn asked me what I'd think of the show, so my stupid mouth just fired back, "Your audience trick didn't work." He then asked my family, "Did it work for you?" They all nodded, and with an enthusiastic "yes" without missing a beat, he turns to me, "Well, there's the problem, you're an idiot." Getting personally insulted by Penn was the high point of that Vegas trip. Met my favorite chef at a book signing. Asked him for his best cooking tip. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Don't. I'm now a microwave meal connoisseur." I met Terry Pratchett while battling very aggressive ovarian cancer. He told me that my hat was really neat. I carry that in my heart today. I've loved Alan Cumming since the very start of his career. I saw his first TV appearance with Forbes Masson. Fast forward almost 30 years, I've moved to the USA and met my now husband, who casually mentioned that he knows another Scottish guy. Yup, you guessed it, Alan Cumming. We met up with Alan when he came to town to perform, and despite him just coming off stage and exhausted, he was incredibly friendly and delighted to meet me and the kids. We get together anytime he's in the area and have met up with him in NY. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met, and he adores our kids. He has sent them wee videos on their birthday a few times too. Just a wonderful guy. I met well, saw in public, shook his hand and took a pic. Rowan Atkinson when I was a kid. He was Johnny English when I met him, but I knew him as Mr. Bean and had no clue what was happening. I got really upset, and you can see that on the pic with him. I was 6. Sorry Rowan, I love you. Was kinda into ski racing as a kid, and was working with my instructor when he held me back in the lift line a chair only to catch the next ride low, and behold, it was Picabo Street with us on the chair. My little preteen soul was in awe. She was badass. Pulled a full 6-inch sub out of her jacket and started chowing down and chatting away about eating enough, racing, skiing, life, etc. I can barely remember what she said. I couldn't stop staring. She took 2 runs with us. I could barely pretend to keep up, of course, but she was so nice. I was in awe. Amazing person. Still think back about how she was just so cool. What an incredible experience, great role model. I never ask celebrities for selfies as it's pretty cringe, and I know they don't want to do it. I've always been a huge fan of Slash, and I met him backstage at a Velvet Revolver gig, and I thought I'd break the selfie rule just this once. I pounced on him and asked for a picture, and he said, "Fuck off, man." Somehow that was better than a photo, but I was still snubbed by a hero. When I was a kid, I was super into Broadway and musical theater. My dream was to be in Broadway. So for my 9th birthday my mom got us tickets to see Wicked on Broadway in New York with most of the original cast. This was a huge trip for us, as we lived on the West Coast. My mom had mentioned to someone working at the show that it was her daughter's birthday and that Idina Menzel was my hero. This was before Frozen and before she was as big of a name as she is now. Somehow, this person brought us backstage after the show to meet the cast. Everyone backstage was very kind and sweet to me, except Idina Menzel. Kristen Chenoweth was super awesome, and Joey McIntyre was really nice and trying to cheer me up, but Idina wouldn't come out of her dressing room. I got to hear her tell Joey, through her dressing room door, that she didn't care about some kid and to leave her the fuck alone. 9-year-old me was crushed, and even though the others were kind and did their best to salvage the situation, I lost interest in musical theater after that. I went on some dates with a guy I didn't realize was one of my favorite science writer authors. Like I knew he had the same name, but I didn't realize they were the same guy. Turns out he was a real jackass, and some other things. It ended when I was in a car accident, and I called him to let him know and he said so. How is that my problem? A doctor whose books I read during undergrad I attended his lectures looked up to him. During my postgraduate degree I got a chance to work under him, and realize what shithole the guy was, does not practice nor believe in anything he preaches. Worst, Joss Whedon was in line for autographs when he started writing for Astonishing X-Men and the line was hours long. He took time with everybody else to answer their questions and be a person. Didn't even look up at me or make eye contact. Best, Max Brooks. What an amazing guy. He was late for his signing at an event I was at, but I was the only person who was in line for it. Everybody else bailed because he was late. Once he arrived, he apologized profusely, and we had an almost 30-minute time chat just about his book and his process. He personalized in his autograph in my copy of World War Z and was a great person to converse with. Honorable mentions for being great: Nichelle Nichols, Walter Koenig, Amber Benson, Peter Mayhew. When I was 5-6, Batman was the only thing I watched on TV. My mom took us to see Adam West at a store somewhere. While waiting in line for so long, Mom went to ask an employee how much longer we had to wait. She overheard Adam West say, "When are we done here? I gotta get away from all these fucking kids." Met Tobey Maguire at a fan meet and greet back in 2013. I think it was a promotion for the Great Gatsby movie. Looking back, I genuinely felt bad for him because everyone kept asking him about Spider-Man and not the Great Gatsby. He called off the event before I got his autograph because some asshole wanted him to talk about why Sony canned him for Andrew Garfield. As an adult looking back now, I see why actors get pissed with shit like that. I think with certain actors who were most commonly associated with one role in particular, it sucks knowing that no matter what future roles you take, someone in the theater would point at you and say, "Hey, isn't that Spider-Man?" I have always sympathized with Tobey because of that reason. When I was a kid, there was a big scouts meet in the east of England, with activities like rafting and archery. The main event was supposed to be Bear Grylls, who was chief scout at the time, attending to meet and do some activities with us. It got to the time he was supposed to be there, but didn't turn up, so we started the activities without him. Just when people had given up hope, a helicopter landed, and we were all pushed into a marquee tent to greet him. He came in, gave a brief maybe 20-second speech about how nice it was to see so many scouts, then got into the back of a car and sped off. I have loved Watchmen, the graphic novel, for many years. In July, I worked in a pop culture convention and one of the guests was John Higgins. I was wary of him, since I was mistreated by many artists as most of them were unknown, but I treated all of them with the same respect. Last day, my shift had ended and I decided to risk it and went to speak with him. He was lovely, couldn't have been nicer, and talked with me for a while. Gave me an autograph and took a selfie with me. I got pranked by Big Dawes Volks. My introverted all would rather seen someone else suffer.